Uncomfortable conversations are needed when it comes to Chainsaw Man Part 2, but they should be critiquing stuff like this instead of being about other stuff like this. Again, as a reader, I trust that Fujimoto is going somewhere with what he writes. For as weird of a guy as Tatsuki Fujimoto is, I have faith in him to write good stories.
Super.
Chat, it seriously might be over. And this video isn't going to be loaded with edits or anything because I'm recording this basically immediately after I've just read the new Chainsaw Man 231, and I'm baffled, bro, to be honest. I want to say a year and a half ago maybe, I uploaded my first and only video on the Chainsaw Man manga. It was about the online consensus of Part 2 at the time, and basically in that video, I gave my thoughts on why I thought the bulk of the online discourse surrounding the series was nonsensical, and that people just needed to let the story play out because, I mean, it's Fujimoto we're talking about. He made Look Back, right? And I think it's safe to say that that video has unfortunately aged like complete dog shit. Granted, the video was made all the way back at chapter like 160, 170, so a lot has gone down in the time between now and then. And I could go back and reread the whole thing. Some people online have said that has helped them appreciate the part more, and if I reread it, I can make a checklist of all the loose ends and like shit that doesn't make sense. But in all honesty, at this point in time, I just don't think the series deserves that amount of attention from me. And even just off the dome, there's a lot of issues that I've had with the series that since my making of that original video remain unresolved still. I'm recording this sick. I've been detached from the manga for a little while now. Like I've been reading, but I don't know if I've been enjoying as much as I used to. I may get some stuff wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments, and spoilers are ahead if you care about that sort of thing. The first real fault that I'd like to get into is in that original Chainsaw Man Part 2 video, I made the distinction that Asa Mitaka is the protagonist of the part. She's who we're introduced to first, and she is such a lovely character. I still adore Asa and Yoru very much. But noticeably, and this didn't happen like immediately after Denji was reintroduced to the story, but gradually Fujimoto has slid Denji back into being our main character of focus, which in my opinion has done a great deal of damage to the story. This kind of ties into the constant online chatter about Denji like never growing as a character. At times, some people believe that this is a deliberate choice made by Fujimoto, but being as deep into Part 2 as we are now, it's obvious to me that the reason Denji feels this way as a character is because Part 2 wasn't made for Denji. The story was supposed to surround Asa and Yoru, and yes, it could focus on both Denji and Asa. I even think Fujimoto does a great job in balancing that duo early on in the part. But as we've seen for the past couple of months, it doesn't even do that. It caters to the point of view of Denji for whatever reason, and trying to connect earlier narrative beats to more recent ones becomes more challenging because of that. And to make matters worse, so much of Denji's time spent as the focus in Part 2 has retroactively undone so many key aspects of his development throughout Chainsaw Man Part 1. And going back to the theory of this being an intentional thing on behalf of Fujimoto, where Denji can't change and he's unable to escape the constant relapsing of his mental problems. That type of story just doesn't make me want to read anymore when he's been doing this for almost 3 years now. If it was intentional, I still wouldn't care because it's just not good, and it doesn't fill me with the same sense of hope and inspiration that Part 1 Denji did. And I get it, the manga's called Chainsaw Man, not The Adventures of Asa Mitaka, but like, come on, man. Like, speaking of continuity, there's a ton of unresolved questions that persist through Part 2. Some of these could just be things I'm misremembering again, but like, what was the deal with the second Chainsaw Man doppelganger? Like, I know he's made reappearances since his initial first sighting, but the fact that something as substantial as a second Chainsaw Man is not even remotely memorable or significant to the current plot is a little crazy to me. And Yuko got off by him. Don't even get me started on how they be doing some of the characters in this series, bro. Seeing Yoshida and especially Nayuta go out sorry for no real reason other than shock value pains me so much because despite both characters' short amount of page time, I still thought they were such cool and interesting ideas for characters. And to see them squandered like they were here in Part 2 leaves such a hole in my heart. And I can't stress this enough, especially for Nayuta, the Control Devil, an integral part of the end of the public safety arc. What are we doing, man? What are we doing? Characters that are still alive aren't nearly as fleshed out as I wish they were. Characters who appear for the first time within Part 2 serve little to no purpose in the grand scheme of things. Remember the Nail Fiend? They were cool for like 2 fucking pages or whatever it was. It's a mess, bro. And maybe one of the major indicators of that is the decline in art. And look, typically, I take the stance that if the writing is good enough, then the way something looks becomes secondary. But in the case of Chainsaw Man Part 2, at this point, the writing isn't good enough. And so the decline in art becomes even more glaring. I think I might have read somewhere that Fujimoto doesn't enjoy drawing anymore, which is very sad to see because, like, look, he was one of the best in the game at one point, and the amount of current mangakas who were inspired by his style speaks to that accomplishment. And I've said this on my Twitter, where I talk about wrestling and mostly retweet anime art, but throughout Part 2, I was so down with the idea that, look, Fujimoto and your staff, take like an absurd amount of time off, like 6 months, a year. If he traded that time, and in exchange, he got all the ideas like organized and like the art back to where it was Part 1 or at the start of Part 2, I would have been so happy. But alas, it wasn't to be. Listen, man, at the end of the day, I think Chainsaw Man as a series, or maybe even Fujimoto as a creative, they need a reset, a clean slate, which maybe is why the most recent chapter ended the way it did, only time will tell. And when I started recording this audio, I was under the impression that the Part 2 manga would be ending in like a couple of weeks within this month. Since starting recording, it looks like they may have changed that. Again, I don't know what's going on. It's kind of a mess, which is unfortunate, man. I think even if the series doesn't end this month and it gets extended, let's say by like a considerable amount of chapters, I don't think Fujimoto and his team are going to be able to salvage this. Maybe they do. Again, never say never, but Part 2, bros. I genuinely think it might be over. No amount of returning characters or break weeks are going to be able to save Part 2 at this point. And that's okay. You know, man, I've come to terms with it. The current landscape of this series has been a long time coming, given the content that was being put out every couple of weeks or so. At the end of the day, I think it's a shame what happened to Chainsaw Man Part 2, something that started off with so many unique and engaging ideas and a bunch of new and intriguing spins on the existing Chainsaw Man canon. But in the end, it spiraled, and then it spiraled some more until we were left with what we have now. And I still think there are some redeeming qualities to Part 2. It's not a total dumpster fire. I want to say everything from the start with Yuko and the Justice Devil, and the introduction of Yoru and her whole dynamic with Asa early on, the aquarium date, the falling devil, all that stuff is excellent in my opinion. Again, who's to say that with the remaining chapters, Fujimoto and his team can't turn this around? But as of right now, I don't like the prospects. Hopefully the ending for Chainsaw Man Part 2 isn't a complete dud, but if it is, hey man, hey man, at least we'll always have Part 1.
There's a little more kick to it.